If you found this YouTube channel, congratulations, you are on your way to passing your real estate exam. In this video, we're gonna go over 5 very important topics that I would not dare walk into the real estate exam without knowing off the top of my head. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Maria. I got my real estate license last year. I passed the first time, and I do actually plan on retaking the real estate license exam again to make sure that my content to you guys is all up to date. You're gonna wanna be here for the long run, trust me. But for today, consider this your crash course for the real estate exam. And if you know what's good for you, you're gonna pay attention to every word that I say. Hint, hint. Super quick side note before we begin. You're taking your real estate exam and you want a full, complete study guide on the most likely stuff that you're gonna see on your exam, and you're on a crunch for time. I hooked you guys up. I made my own study guide, and yes, I am charging for it because it took a lot of time. But for many of the people that I tutored, and because I don't have a lot of time to tutor anymore, many of you asked for any additional notes I could give you to use to study from, and I basically gave you all my chicken scratch notes, and a lot of the stuff wasn't filled in. Now I filled it all in. I made it all as simple as possible, and I also added a ton more information because it is really hard to get through everything, whether it be tutoring or YouTube. If you want it, I'm going to be putting the link below. And it is super, super reasonable for what I'm giving you, and is going to significantly help you pass your exam if you're crunched for time. And the first topic that I would literally not walk into the exam without knowing: license laws and regulations. Make sure you know what Article 12A is and the year that it was created. So Article 12A is real estate law, and it was created in 1922. These are the laws and protocols that we are supposed to follow as agents. I would also make sure that I know what Article 78 is. Article 78 is our appeal process. So if you're a real estate agent and you get caught or get accused of doing something wrong, you have the right to defend yourself in court. Article 78, people. The next article that I would definitely know before walking into the exam is Article 14. Article 14 is Property Condition Disclosure Act. So when a seller puts their house on the market, they have to disclose to the seller's agent anything that they know is wrong with the property, because the buyers have the right to know before they purchase the house. If a buyer doesn't receive a property disclosure statement, they can actually be eligible to a $500 credit at closing. So those are the articles that I would definitely know for the exam. Guess who gives us our real estate license? The Department of State. Department of State gives us our real estate license, and because they give it to us, they are also allowed to suspend our real estate license, and they're able to charge us 4 times the amount of damages, or sometimes it'll just say $16,000 flat. It could be either or, because as an agent, it is extremely important to make sure that you disclose anything that you know is wrong with the house. Anything that you're told, you must disclose to any buyer. Now, if your license gets suspended, the agent is going to have to wait 1 year before reapplying. And real estate agents do not actually carry their real estate license on them. Instead, we get something called a pocket card, and that is proof that we have our real estate license, and that is what we carry around all the time with us. Now, this is very good to know. Our licenses are good for 2 years, and every 2 years, we have to do 22.5 hours of continuing education. Now, if you fail to do the 22.5 hours of continuing education before the 2 years is up, you will now have to retake the real estate exam only. You don't have to do the course all over again. You're just gonna have to retake the real estate exam. Now, here's a fun fact that you should definitely know about real estate. We do all the work, right? We're the ones every single day interacting with our buyers and sellers to close the deals. But apparently, it is the broker who has the main relationship with our buyers and sellers. As a realtor, you are the direct agent to the broker, and you are a sub-agent to the buyer or seller that you're working with. That is the technical definition for being a real estate agent, which you totally don't need to know after your exam. Literally no one will ever ask you this again after your exam. You should also know what an associate broker is. So an associate broker is someone who got their broker's license but they don't plan on opening their own practice. So if you're not going to open your own practice and you're just going to continue working for the broker that you work for or under the broker that you work for, it basically means nothing to be an associate broker. If you get your broker's license, but you're not going to go open up your own firm, this is basically just a tactic to sound more important to buyers and sellers. I'm an associate broker. It literally means nothing. But make sure you know that for the exam. Now, let's say that you get a listing and you're going to go put for sale signs on the yard. If for some reason you got for sale signs and you only included your face and your name and nothing else, you literally did not mention the brokerage that you work for. You didn't mention anywhere that you work for Century 21, that you work for Signature Premier Properties, that you work for Coach. That is called a blind ad. If you're putting your face, your name, and mentioning that you're a realtor, you have to mention what brokerage you work for. Otherwise, it is called a blind ad, and we cannot have blind ads. Another big no-no when it comes to real estate is something called commingling. Commingling is mixing of personal funds with real estate funds. So what that means is if someone gives you a deposit or down payment, you can't just take the money and shove it in your back pocket, or you can't just take the check and shove it in your back pocket. You have to go give it to the broker immediately because they're going to take the money and they're going to put it in an escrow account where it belongs. If you were to take a check, shove it in your back pocket and say, I'll take it to the office after the weekend, that is now commingling. You can't do that. And lastly, we have something called a kickback. A kickback is basically a secret fee, a secret profit, it's improper commission splitting, an undisclosed referral fee. You can't bribe someone for leads, especially someone who doesn't have a real estate license, because if they have a real estate license and you ask them for a referral, they have to collect a referral fee. Long story short, with a kickback, every time you make money, the broker has to get its cut. So it's basically a secret fee, an illegal fee, just something you're not supposed to be doing. And that is definitely something I would know for your exam. So now let's get into some agency. This is something that I have mentioned on my channel several times now. And there are other things that I'm going to repeat that I've also mentioned in several of my YouTube videos. So there's 3 types of agency that you should definitely know for your exam. It's going to be universal agent, general agent, and special agents. Us as real estate agents, we are special agents, and I'm going to tell you why. The best way to think about special agent is you are hiring one person to do one job. We're special agents because you are either hiring us to help you buy a home or to help sell your home. That is it. We do one job. So a special agent is one person doing one job, because then we have something called a general agent. A general agent is one person that is going to take care of all matters concerning one thing. For example, a property manager, okay? If you hire a property manager to take care of your apartment building, they're going to take care of everything regarding that one building. If you have a building in New York, you're not going to have the property manager of your New York building go down to Florida and have to take care of your Florida apartment complex too. That makes no sense. How is he going to run both when he's not there? A property manager is a perfect example for a general agent because it's one person taking care of all matters regarding one thing. So lastly, we have a universal agent. A universal agent is going to be someone who literally has power of attorney over you. They can get into contracts for you. They have the authority to represent the client in all matters. So here's a scenario for you. What if you meet with a buyer and they happen to like a house that is actually your listing? So you're showing them as a buyer one of your listings. So you're also working with the seller and your buyer loves the house and they decide to go into contract. You kind of have a predicament here because you're supposed to be representing both of them, the buyer and the seller. That is called dual agency. That is very important to know. But there's a catch. You have to get your buyer and your seller to agree to dual agency. Because when they agree to dual agency, let's put it this way, you're no longer representing either of them. When you walk into a dual agency situation, your buyer and your seller have to sign off that they are okay with giving up their loyalty and their disclosure from you. And you just become the middleman because now they're basically negotiating for themselves. You're just becoming the messenger. So if they're both happen to be okay with this and you get it signed off, then you're good. But if one of them decides, no, I want a realtor to represent me and only me, now you have to call up your broker. They're going to send another agent from your office to the transaction. And when this happens, it is called the designated agent. They were not okay with dual agency. They were not okay with you representing the buyer and the seller in the same transactions because then they have to give up their rights. So your broker sent a designated agent to the transaction. And yes, this comes up on the exam. As a real estate agent, you have something called fiduciary responsibilities. So this is how you're supposed to conduct yourself as a real estate agent at all times. You've probably heard the abbreviation for the fiduciary responsibilities already. There's CC load, there's old car. So I say CC load. So for CC load, we have confidentiality, care, loyalty, obedience, accounting, and disclosure. That is CC load. Now, out of those 6, I'm only gonna talk about 2. Hint, hint. So the first one that we're going to talk about is confidentiality. Confidentiality is you do not disclose your buyer or seller's financial information. You protect their financial information. So if you're working with the buyer and you find out that the seller would actually accept a lower offer for the house, you're not going to disclose to the seller or the seller's agent that your buyer really, really likes the house and would pay more for their house, because that is not working in their best interest. So confidentiality is you do not disclose the financial information of your buyer or your seller. You protect their best interest. And then we have disclosure. So disclosure is different from confidentiality because disclosure has to do with commission split or property deficiencies. That is stuff you have to say. That's not stuff that can stay confidential. So lastly, for agency, we're gonna get into the antitrust laws. And there's 4 of them that you need to know. The first one that we're gonna get into is called price fixing. So here's an example of price fixing. In New York, when you wanna hire a real estate agency, it typically costs between 4 and 6%. Price fixing would be if all of the brokers decided to get together and decide, you know what, from now on, we are all going to start charging 7%, and anyone who wants to work with a real estate agency is going to have no choice but to hire us for 7%, period. That is price fixing. Sellers are going to have no choice but to cooperate if we all decide to raise the price. The next thing that we're going to get into is group boycott. A new real estate company opens up and all of the other brokers decide, you know what? We're not going to work with these people. We're going to boycott them. We're not going to bring our buyers to their listings, and we're not going to have our sellers accept any offers from this real estate company because we don't want to work with them. It's going to be a group boycott. So that's what that is. The next one is market allocation. So I'm going to give you an example. If we're on Long Island and me and my friend who are realtors decide you do business on Eastern Long Island and I'm only going to do business on Western Long Island because I don't want to compete with you on that territory and I don't want you competing with me on my territory. You're basically splitting up or dividing up territory, and you cannot do that. Everyone can do business everywhere. So that is what market allocation is. Last one we're going to talk about, and I would definitely pay attention to this one, guys, is tie-in arrangement. So let me explain this simply. If I'm a realtor and someone wants to do business with me, if I were to turn around and say, okay, I will do business with you, but you have to use my mortgage lender, otherwise I'm not going to work with you. That's called a tie-in arrangement. You're basically forcing your buyer or seller to do business with someone else if they want to work with you, and you can't do that. You're a realtor and you're going to have to work with plenty of different attorneys, plenty of different home inspectors, plenty of different lenders. They're not always going to use someone that you know already, and you have to be okay with that because they're allowed to use whoever you want. You can't force business onto anyone. You can refer, you can recommend, but you can't literally say, if you don't use my mortgage lender or you don't use my attorney, I'm not going to work with you. So that is a tie-in arrangement, simply put. Now we're going to get into agency disclosure. There are 4 different types of listings that we could discuss today, but instead, we're only going to discuss 2. You know what? Scratch that. We're going to discuss all 4, but I'll just give you super quick definitions of the other 2. The first and most important listing that we're going to discuss today is exclusive right to sell. This is the listing you want as a real estate agent. Exclusive right to sell is the greatest protection for you and your broker to make sure that you don't do all this work and not end up getting compensated at the end, because your seller is signing off on the fact that whether you the agent find the buyer or they end up finding the buyer to sell their home to, you're going to get paid regardless because you put in the time and the effort. They have to compensate you either way. It doesn't matter who finds the buyer. So that is exclusive right to sell, and that is the one that you always want. Because the other one that we're going to discuss is exclusive agency. Yeah, they both have the word exclusive in it, so it can get confusing, or I see a lot of people that I tutor get confused by this, but we have exclusive right to sell, that's the good one. And then we have exclusive agency, that is the one that is more risky to you. There are circumstances where you should and could use that, but it is more risky to you as the agent. An exclusive agency listing compared to exclusive right to sell listing, you as the agent are only gonna get your commission, you're only gonna get compensated for the transaction if you're the one that finds the buyer. If your seller ends up finding the buyer to sell their house to, then you don't get anything. It doesn't matter that you spent all of your time, all of your money marketing their house. It doesn't matter. You have to find the buyer in order to get paid for the transaction. That is the difference between exclusive right to sell versus exclusive agency. And again, there are circumstances if you're an experienced agent where exclusive agency is a good way to get someone to list with you, but use at your own risk. You have to know what you're doing with it. As a real estate agent, you're gonna want exclusive right to sell listings. That is the biggest protection to you to make sure you don't waste your time and money. Now, the other two listings that we're just gonna get into super quick is one, you can have something called an open listing, which I basically have never seen. I definitely don't think it happens very much. So an open listing, a seller is gonna enlist with multiple brokers, and the person who sells their house is the one who gets the commission. The one who finds the buyer for the home is the one who gets the commission. And then we have something called a net listing. So the biggest thing that you need to know about a net listing is that it's illegal. And just to give you a super short definition, the reason a net listing became illegal is because sellers used to say, I wanna make this much money on my house, and if I get any higher bids and I make extra money on top of what I wanted for the house, you can keep that as extra commission, aka the agent can keep that for extra commission on top of the whatever percentage they already agreed to pay the agent. So this is literally just extra money to them. So the reason it became illegal is because agents started to purposely say their house is worth under what it is, so the seller would be happy with accepting less than market value for their house, meaning obviously the agent's gonna get more money. So that's why it became illegal. But as long as you remember that net listing is illegal, that's all you really need to know. Now, moving right along, the next topic that I want to get into, and this is a super, super important topic. You should be paying attention to everything, but if you haven't, make sure it's this. Mortgage unit. Now, we're not going to get into every single mortgage thing that you should know. I definitely have another video that I'll link above, but to definitely explain and cover some of the super important mortgage things you need to know, we are going to be starting with mortgage banker versus mortgage broker. What is the difference between the two? You need to know, as far as this goes, a mortgage banker is licensed with New York State Banking Department. A mortgage broker is registered with New York State Banking Department. Definitely something I would pay attention to. And then the difference between a mortgage banker and a mortgage broker, a mortgage banker originates the loan, while a mortgage broker brings the borrower, I can't say that, the borrower and the lender brings them together. That's what a mortgage broker does. And they bring the two together using the secondary market. A mortgage broker typically goes to the secondary market to get the funds for your loan. When you see those funny words on your test, those funny names, the Sally Mae, Fannie Mac, Freddie Mac, those are the secondary market. Those are secondary market lenders. Next, FHA versus conventional loan. So FHA is Federal Housing Administration. It is essentially a loan that is backed up by the government. It's a government insured loan, and it acts under HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development. Also, make sure you know that. And HUD is basically a government program that provides financial assistance to low-income Americans to help them afford a home. But HUD also actually provides help with rent. And when they provide help with rent, it's called FHA Section 8. And that is definitely a great test question. So then with FHA, then you have a conventional loan. And a good amount of the time, people are trying to get a conventional loan. So a conventional loan is not government insured. Your interest rate is going to be based on your credit score and and you have a little bit more flexibility with it because it's not something that the government's giving you. So simply put, that is the difference between FHA and conventional. Amortization versus negative amortization. Again, this is stuff that I've definitely said my YouTube channel before, especially when it comes to the mortgage unit. So to simply explain amortization, you get your loan, you're going to get a fixed interest rate for the entire life of the loan, whether it be 15 years, 30 years, and by the end of the loan, your balance is paid up, you no longer have a mortgage, your balance is zero. That is what amortization is. That is like, you know, the ideal situation when you get a house. But then negative amortization is you get a loan on your house, but the mortgage rate is not fixed. It'll be fixed for maybe 4 years, maybe 7 years. And then after the 4 years or 7 years, it depends on the broker that you go to, your mortgage rate is going to adjust to whatever the market is at the time. So any additional costs that you have now gets put to the back end of your loan. And most of the time, when your 15 or 30 years is up, you now have a balloon payment, a huge balloon payment, which is sometimes larger than your actual down payment that you initially put in. So AKA, your balance is not zero at the end of your loan. You still have money to pay, as opposed to amortization where your balance is zero. You paid everything off. So definitely super important. Make sure you have those two straight. I'm giving you a great little real estate crash course on the environment unit. This is a quick version. I do have a video just on the environment unit. Something that I've been hearing through the grapevine that you should definitely know for your real estate exam. Department of Health monitors water. Also, make sure you understand what asbestos are. Asbestos is a mineral that we use for insulation, but when the asbestos start to tear or start to rip or start to crumble, that's when it becomes dangerous. And if it looks damaged or crumbling or like it's ripping, you need to hire a professional to remove it because it is dangerous. If it's not damaged, then you can literally leave it alone. An example of good insulation is called fiberglass. So next we're going to talk about radon. Radon can be found in water or in air. And if you do happen to have radon, it is quite simple to remove. Radon gets into your house through rocks or through cracks in your foundation. And that basically sums it up. Next, we definitely need to talk about lead. Lead can be found in water or in paints. We still make the buyers sign a lead paint disclosure, and the sellers still have to disclose if they have any knowledge of the paint possibly having lead in it, because lead, as you know, is very toxic. Next, we're going to discuss two chemicals that I cannot pronounce. So we have CFC and we have PCB. So CFC is found in aerosol spray and it depletes the ozone layer, so that's why that's bad. And all you really need to know about PCB is it is found in electrical equipment. Nice and simple. If you see anything on your exam about electromagnetic fields, just know that there is no evidence found that there is any kind of harm from an electromagnetic field. So that's all you really need to know about that. And last but certainly not least, we are going to talk about CERCLA and SARA, which are abbreviations, and I will put what they actually stand for on the screen somewhere. Helps to protect the environment, and it makes someone responsible for cleaning up after environmental disasters. But then SARA provides something called Innocent Landowner's Defense, which basically means if someone moved into a house but there is something environmentally wrong with it, if they just moved in and they can prove that it wasn't their fault, it was the past owner's fault, SARA allows the current homeowner to go after the previous owner for anything that's environmentally wrong. So CERCLA and SARA basically environmental protection, they make someone responsible for cleaning up, but then SARA goes an extra step with innocent landowner's immunity. I really hope you guys took some really good notes on this video, and make sure to check out the rest of my videos because I go even more depth with every single chapter. If you want to pass your real estate exam or just want to succeed at life in general, I am happy you're here and I am so grateful for all of you. Please feel free to email me anytime. I will get back to you as soon as possible, and just make sure to like and subscribe as always. I have so much I want to share with you guys. Take care.